Tonight, why the Canadian Taxpayers Federation is calling out the province. More layoffs at Polytechnic. And a historic murder trial is set to begin next week in Regina.
Live from our studios in Regina, this is CTV News.
Good evening. There are calls for more transparency in how the Premier and his cabinet are spending travel dollars. Out-of-province spending totals are released every 6 months, but with very few details. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation says taxpayers have a right to know whether government delegations are staying at the Ritz-Carlton or a local Motel 6. Wayne Mantica has more.
The Canadian Taxpayers Federation says money spent on travel by the Premier and Cabinet may well be justified, but it wants a more precise accounting.
The bottom line is that taxpayers pay all the bills for the provincial government, and they need as many and as easy ways as possible to access what that money is being spent on.
The government releases travel totals every 6 months. The Taxpayers Federation cites a recent $25,000 trade mission to Mexico that involved the Premier and a handful of officials. The accounting doesn't say who spent what.
They don't post the itemized receipts along with those expenses. And those are important for taxpayers to know because it shows whether the government is spending money on renting a Corolla or a Corvette.
How the government accounts for travel has been a sore point with the NDP for some time. It has proposed legislation that would change that.
We're very concerned about the lack of transparency from this government. Travel's a piece of it. Of course, travel is really important right now, but ensuring that dollars are well spent is something that's always a concern for us.
The government says it takes transparency very seriously and will continue working to increase it whenever possible. Information and privacy commissioners in half of Canadian provinces and in the federal government can order the release of documents, but not in Saskatchewan. It's an issue that the NDP say it will continue to pursue. Wayne Mantica, CTV News, Regina.
QP healthcare workers gathered in front of MLA Alana Ross's office in Central Prince Albert for a rally about their collective agreement. Similar CUPE rallies for the collective agreement have taken place across the province this year. The Ministry of Health provided a statement saying that CUPE, SGEU, and SEIU West declined a 3% wage adjustment offered by the Saskatchewan Association of Health Organizations earlier this year. CUPE says that the union is not prepared to accept any concessions when it comes to bargaining, and that it's time the province put more effort into worker retention.
We want to be able to have a serious look at the retention crisis, the crisis in our healthcare by doing something about retention, keeping our healthcare workers in this province, rather than then leaving this province for other provinces because of wages.
The ministry says it is confident the Saskatchewan Association of Health Organizations and the health unions will be successful in negotiating agreements that work for both sides. A provincial election might be 3 years away, but that's not stopping the Saskatchewan NDP party from making promises today in front of the Yorkton Regional Health Centre. Rural and remote health critic Jared Clark says the Sask NDP is committed to immediately build a new hospital in Yorkton if they form government in 2028. He said that while the staff of the current hospital is dedicated, the facility is in rough shape and is in need of modernization. Clark mentioned the lack of hot water in the maternity ward and that the emergency room is too small.
We're ready and committed to do what it takes to build this new hospital, to make sure that there's housing here for recruiting new healthcare workers, because we know housing is an issue in Yorkton, and making sure that the municipal infrastructure is ready to support an upgrade or a new hospital here in Yorkton.
In their response to CTV News, the government of Saskatchewan says they will deliver on their commitment to build a hospital in Yorkton. Last year, Premier Scott Moe said the party is currently in the planning and assessment stage for that new hospital. Well, the hits keep coming at Saskatchewan Polytechnic, with more layoffs happening this week. As Keenan Sorkon reports, the layoffs go deeper than people might realize.
The layoffs at Saskatchewan Polytechnic continue to grow. After a series of layoffs in the spring and summer, the Saskatchewan Polytechnic Faculty Association says a new round of layoffs is eliminating 25 faculty positions.
It's having a chilling effect on students. It's having a chilling effect on faculty.
This pushes the total number of faculty association members laid off since April to 63.
I've heard many people saying that they would rather return to industry.
This number doesn't include members of the Saskatchewan Government and General Employees Union, which says it lost 48 members to layoffs since August, pushing the total between the two unions to 111 people.
Okay, well, what's the plan? There is no plan that anybody has heard.
Zawada Weeb says she's never seen reductions like this in her 36 years working with SaskPoly, and many are wondering if they'll be around for Christmas. SaskPoly said last week the cuts are in response to a cap on international students from the federal government, which has reduced enrollment.
So much uncertainty, and that's the challenge moving forward for the whole post-secondary sector. Saskatchewan Polytechnic is not alone.
The Saskatchewan NDP says reliable funding wouldn't have put SaskPoly in this position.
It's a $6 million cut as compared to last year. So if you see, it's a chronic underfunding from last number of years.
The province says it's working towards a new multi-year funding deal to keep providing training opportunities, and it's those opportunities Downton fears will be lost if the layoffs continue.
If we aren't educating our students in Saskatchewan, my concern is that we will lose them to the other provinces and they will never return.
Keenan Sorakan, CTV News, Saskatoon.
The Saskatchewan Environmental Society is voicing their disappointment after a Saskatchewan judge's decision to strike down a lawsuit against SaskPower. The SES's application argued that government action to expand natural gas-fired electricity violated charter rights because of its negative climate change impacts, and asked the court to order SaskPower to set a credible target for reaching net zero greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible. The court's ruling means the case will not proceed. In a statement, SES Vice President Bob Holiday says while we respect the court's decision, we are concerned urgent issues surrounding Saskatchewan's electricity future remain unexamined. Saskatchewan producers are wrapping up this year's harvest with 98% of crops now in the bin. Favorable weather last week before that long weekend snowfall did help producers bring in most of the final acres and complete field work. The west central and northeast regions are leading the way with 99% of their crops off, with other areas close behind. Only small amounts of oilseed, chickpea, and canary seeds remain in the field. Producers hoping for a bit more precipitation before a freeze-up to recharge the ground for spring. Cole Davenport filling in the weather center for us tonight. And Cole, you heard producers say they would like some more precipitation before things start really freezing. Anything in the near future?
Well, for producers in southeastern Saskatchewan, there's going to be a little bit of rainfall over the next 24 hours or so. But besides that, for much of the province, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to see some of that potential rainfall. Let's take a look here at your radar and satellite picture. You can see that pocket of precipitation down in southeastern Saskatchewan that I mentioned. And over the next few days, we're going to see that take over a bit more of a wider swath of eastern Saskatchewan. However, we're not quite there yet. Currently sitting at around 10 to 11 degrees, depending on where you are. A bit cooler in Rockland at 7 at the moment, and a bit warmer in Hudson Bay at 13. Here's a look at your almanac for the day. Our daytime high was 9.8 degrees, just shy of that 10-degree mark that we were projecting, with a low of 6.2. Average temperature around this time of year is about 11.8, so close to average. The record high, 25.6, set in 1961. Sunrise at about 7:22, sunset at 6:05, as those daytime hours start to get a little bit shorter heading into winter, Lee.
All right, Cole will have more, including why he's wearing a special edition Pats jersey coming up in Maine weather. The trial for a historical murder case in Regina is set to begin next week. The accused in the 2006 death of Misha Pavlik is scheduled to face trial Monday. Pavlik was fatally stabbed during a graduation party near Last Mountain Lake over the May-long weekend in 2006. With his homicide under investigation for 17 years, the accused, who could not be named since he was a youth at the time of Pavlik's death, was arrested in June of 2023, charged with second-degree murder. A waste disposal company in Regina is being sued by the University of Regina Students' Union, URSU, for defamation, claiming the company's online publications have been false and malicious, impacting its reputation. Sierra D'Souza Butts has more.
The University of Regina Students' Union and its general manager are taking legal action against Just Bins for allegedly defaming the nonprofit's reputation through online posts on social media. In addition to suing the Regina Waste Disposal Company, the lawsuit has also been filed against former URSU president Harry Kahn, who sat in the role back in 2018. According to the statement of claim, the defendants, quote, online publications are false, irresponsible, unfair, and malicious attacks on the plaintiff's reputation, adding Just Bins and Kahn have both falsely and maliciously published statements which the plaintiffs assert to be defamatory. While CTV News is not publishing the content in the post at issue for legal reasons, the statement of claim says the alleged defamatory statements give people the impression the plaintiffs are engaged in unethical practices and mismanaging student funds and affairs, among other allegedly defamatory statements. The defendants have not yet filed statements of defense, and none of the plaintiffs' allegations have been tested in court. CTV News has reached out to URSU and its general manager, Aoun Mohammed, as well as Khan, for comment. Just Bins responded to CTV News with no comment on the matter. The legal action comes in the middle of a series of clashes between the union and the University of Regina over the past several months. URSU has also called a special general meeting virtually for a second time to determine if the union will be dissolved. The meeting is set for October 21st. Sierra D'Souza Butts, CTV News, Regina.
City of Regina has a new app to help visually impaired people navigate their way across busy intersections. The app, called Pet App, will help those cross the street at 9 intersections on Victoria Avenue from the blocks of Albert Street to Broad Street in the city's downtown. As someone approaches the intersection, it will announce the intersection and the direction they're heading, then count down on the phone speaker so the person walking knows when to cross the road and how long they have to do so.
So the app was included in one of the actions for our accessibility plan that was approved by council in 2024. We've done some testing since August on it, so I've used it a few times as I'm, crossing the street, and even just personally, like when I'm going for a lunch, I've used it to cross the street to go, grab some lunch and, do kind of those daily activities, which has been nice.
The city says they hope to expand the locations across Regina's downtown towards the end of the year. Moose Jaw is launching a new project to preserve its city-rich history. Memory Keeper is an online platform used to store mixed media content. The Heritage Advisory Committee, with help from the Moose Jaw Public Library and Saskatchewan Polytechnic students, spending 2 years gathering photos, stories, documents, and more to display on the page.
To keep those stories living and to keep them in one place like Memory Keeper is just extremely convenient, and I think an excellent resource for people to learn about Moose Jaw and then people to be proud of Moose Jaw.
Already, there are 29 stories on the Moose Jaw Memory Keeper Discovery page. Still ahead, the Prime Minister teases legislation to get tougher on crime, and one family's frustration with Air Canada.
Your morning just got a little brighter. Start your day with CTV Your Morning, and you could win $20,000. For your chance to win, watch CTV Your Morning Saskatchewan, weekday mornings 6 to 9.
Meth seizure ever at New Zealand's border.
W5 exposes a global pipeline.
So that is meth from Canada.
And a crisis.
The product's flooding in.
Made in Canada. W5 investigates. Saturday at 7 on CTV.
A promise today from the federal government to get tougher on crime. After years of pressure from the provinces and police, the Prime Minister says a new bill will be tabled next week that will crack down on violent and repeat offenders through strong reforms on sentencing and bail. And there's also a pledge to hire more police. Rachel Aiello has the details.
The federal government says a crackdown on repeat violent offenders is coming.
It will no longer be up to the Crown to prove why someone should stay behind bars. It will be up to the accused to prove to the court why they can be trusted to be released.
Prime Minister Mark Carney says next week the Liberals will introduce long-awaited bail reform legislation to keep those accused of serious crimes out of the community. The new bill will also amend the criminal code to allow consecutive sentencing for those convicted of multiple crimes, end conditional sentences for a series of sexual offenses, and impose tougher penalties for organized retail thefts. These amendments are aimed at addressing headline-making crimes, including the surge in some cities of brazen smash-and-grab robberies. But they're getting mixed reviews from criminal defense lawyers.
And I think it's a measured approach. But at the end of the day, they just send a message because it don't really change that much, I have to say. But it sends the message that there is public concern.
I think it may work to curb that type of behavior, but I also think it is a ton of lip service.
These measures come after concerted pressure from premiers, police forces, and opposition parties.
And yet Mark Carney has done absolutely nothing to reverse the Liberal laws that caused this chaos and carnage.
Today, Carney also announced a nearly $2 billion funding boost for the RCMP. Coming in the next budget, the money will go towards hiring 1,000 new officers, increasing the cadet recruitment allowance, and dedicating more personnel to probing financial crimes.
The devil is in the details. We're going to take a look at what comes out next week, but we're happy to see that we were listened to and some of the things we advocated for were included.
Carney is set to continue his pre-budget pre-positioning tomorrow. The Prime Minister has plans to make what he called an important announcement on border security. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
Canada Post says it will prioritize reliable and affordable mail delivery across the province or the country as it moves ahead with major operational changes to cope with a worsening financial picture. On September the 25th, Federal Procurement Minister Joelle Lightbound gave the Crown Corporation 45 days to come up with a plan to get its business back on track. He also approved changes to the Postal Service's mandate, including phasing out door-to-door delivery for homes still receiving it. Canada Post says it will ensure vital postal services for rural, remote, and Indigenous communities will be protected. It also pledged to be fair and respectful to employees as changes are rolled out. 55,000 unionized postal workers walked off the job in late September to protest the changes. Mail is moving again as they're now on a rotating strike. Well, if you're a parent, this might be a story that bothers you. Imagine boarding a flight, toddler with you, only to have your child seated somewhere else on the plane. And when you ask for help, you're told you're on your own. That's what one family had to deal with while on an Air Canada flight recently. And that's just a little bit of the story for the family traveling with a little one. CTV's Adrian Goldbrill has more on the incident and the fight for air passenger rights.
A sun-kissed Florida vacation ended in a cloud of uncertainty. The McLaughlin family's journey home to Toronto began with a 5-hour flight delay. Then the family of four learned that their 18-month-old daughter, Margaret, who they call Molly for short, had been placed on standby.
I said, how could she be on standby?
Eventually given a ticket, the McLaughlins then realized their toddler had been assigned to a seat all by herself, more than 6 rows away from her closest parent. Greg McLaughlin claims Air Canada flight attendants then refused to ask customers to switch seats, leaving the family to figure it out with passengers on their own.
You are a very large company that operates airplanes. You should know that children are on the plane, and you should make sure that they are safe, full stop.
Regulations state that children under 5 should be in a seat adjacent to their parent.
Hello, Greg. This is Amanda from the Canadian Transportation Agency.
Following a months-long investigation by the Canadian Transportation Agency, the CTA left this voicemail for the family last week.
We want to inform you that the investigation has now concluded and no enforcement action will be taken at this time.
I don't know why the Canadian taxpayer is paying for that agency. I'm not sure who they're protecting.
The maximum fine Air Canada could have received is $25,000. Consumer advocates believe the lack of action highlights a systemic issue.
The Canadian Transportation Agency and the government are serving the airline's private, financial, corporate interests instead of the public interest of passengers.
In an email, the CTA say their investigation found that the infant was seated with her family for flight AC 1659 and that no infraction to the regulations was found. According to her father, the only reason Molly ended up seated with her family was because her parents and passengers fixed the issue, while Air Canada staff refused to help. An email from Air Canada in part states that the airline has since taken measures to reinforce compliance through improved seat assignment technology. Air Canada eventually offered the family vouchers for future travel. The McLaughlins have declined.
For the family, they say this was never about receiving compensation. They never asked for vouchers. They simply wanted Air Canada to be held accountable. In their case, they believe that's something the Canadian Transportation Agency has failed to do. Adrian Gobro, CTV News, Mississauga, Ontario.
In the Middle East, the National Remembrance Day ceremony was held in honor of those lost in the October 7th attack in Israel. The country's president offered an apology to the victims on behalf of the State of Israel. The ceremony in Jerusalem was also attended by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who vowed to bring more Israeli families to live in communities that were attacked by Hamas-led militants. They killed nearly 1,200 people and abducted 251 others. All living hostages have been returned from Gaza. 10 bodies have been returned so far. And the bodies of 120 Palestinians have been handed over by Israel since the ceasefire agreement in exchange for the release of the hostages. Israel freed about 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees on Monday. Meanwhile, Gaza's Rafah crossing with Egypt will probably be reopened on Sunday, according to Israel's foreign minister. The Israelis say they are making all the necessary preparations, but did not specify whether the crossing would be opened for the passage of humanitarian aid or just for people. Israel approved 600 aid trucks to enter Gaza yesterday. The UN called the number a good base, but nowhere near enough. The White House says U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin had a productive call today as Moscow's invasion of Ukraine continues.
The president feels like great progress was made on this call. They also agreed to have a high-level senior staff meeting convened as early as next week, which will then be followed by a meeting very likely between President Trump and President Putin as well.
Budapest was named as a potential meeting place. Trump posted on social media that he believes the deal he helped broker in the Middle East could provide momentum towards ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in Washington today ahead of meetings at the White House tomorrow. Coming up, how a local program is helping people with disabilities find employment in Regina.
The NHL season is underway. I'm Darryl Rummeld, and fantasy sports enthusiasts are buzzing. Friday on Your Morning, we are digging into the Keniston Super Draft.
Thanks for staying with us as we take a look at your full forecast on what has turned into a beautiful day through much of southern Saskatchewan, especially considering that we're at the midway point in October. We'll start with a look at your current conditions in Regina. Right now sitting at 9 degrees, winds out of the north at 9 kilometers per hour, so 9 seems to be the theme for us into tonight. Here's a look at your radar and satellite picture. You can see a little pocket of precipitation down in southeastern Saskatchewan. That is going to play a factor for the forecast for much of eastern Saskatchewan heading over the next few days. We'll take a look at that now. Here's where you can see it coming up from the U.S., and that's going to continue to swirl around until about Friday morning. Early Friday morning, that's when we're going to see that system push as far north as about the Yorkton region and some other areas a bit farther north of that, but it might be a bit more scattered. And then by the time we get through into Friday night, you can see a nice band of clear conditions across a good chunk of Saskatchewan. However, anywhere in south central or southeastern Saskatchewan, still looking at possibly some cloud cover or some heavier rainfall potentially in areas right along the border with Montana. Moving ahead to Saturday, not too bad, scattered cloud, nothing really to report about into most of the weekend, which is a good change of pace from last weekend when we saw that band of snowfall. Speaking of snowfall, you see this these clouds that have just rolled in behind me? Those could potentially be bringing a little bit, but not anytime soon, so we won't worry about that just yet. But just be aware that there is another round of precipitation on the way. We'll jump out of the way so you can see the tonight and tomorrow look at Prince Albert, La Loche, and La Ronge, as well as Lloydminster, up to about 11 tomorrow, down to 3 tonight. Prince Albert down below freezing tonight as well. Most areas looking at a mix of sun and cloud. For North Battleford, Saskatoon, and Yorkton. Yorkton looking at a high of 11. Same goes for Saskatoon. Low of 4 in the Parkland tonight. Some possible showers there as we see that precipitation make its way further north. Saskatoon looking at -2 overnight, but nice and clear. All the difference that distance there makes. Maple Creek, Swift Current, Moose Jaw, all looking at temperatures between about 10 and 13 degrees tomorrow. Tonight dropping down to about 3 to 1. Depending on where you are. A bit more cloud cover towards Moose Jaw, being a bit closer to that system making its way out of the U.S. and into the southeast. But Swift Current, Maple Creek, nice and clear tonight. For tomorrow in Estevan, looking at a high of 13, mix of sun and cloud. Again, expect rainfall in Estevan and Weyburn this evening with a high of 13 in Weyburn as well. Assiniboia getting up to about 12 degrees tomorrow. Not looking at any of the rain, but there will be some cloud cover. In Regina, for tonight, down to about 1 degree. Winds out of the southeast between 10 and 35 kilometers per hour. Tomorrow, high of 11 with winds out of the northwest between 10 and 20 kilometers per hour, and it'll be mainly sunny, which is a good change of pace from these more overcast conditions that we've had to take a look at. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. Again, tomorrow getting up to a high of about 10 or 11 degrees, somewhere in between those two, with a low of 3. On Saturday, looking at the Regina Pats in action, the high of 10, low of 0. Nice and sunny all day, so should be a decent day for a hockey game to make your way down to the rink. And that is also the reason for this jersey here. It is Cancer Awareness Night for the Pats. These jerseys are being auctioned off. That auction opened up today. That's why we're wearing this today for you. So it's a long-time CTV viewers might even know. Oh, there's the cord, a little bit of exposure to the magic there. But number 2, yours truly, Channel 2. If you've been watching for a very long time, you might remember that slogan. Looking at Sunday, up to a high of about 13 degrees. 6 for Monday, a little bit of rainfall in there. That is tied to some of that cloud cover that we talked about on the radar and satellite picture. But not going to be looking at any snowfall, at least not in southern Saskatchewan. Other areas in the north could be seeing a little bit of that precipitation shift into snow, but we'll have to take a closer look at that system as we get a little bit closer to it. And of course, we'll be keeping an eye on it just in case. But Lee, looking like a fantastic weekend to start getting into the spirit for hockey season. Yeah, hockey season. Not a bad jersey. Who do they play on Saturday, the Pats? The Brandon Wheat Kings are in town. The Brandon Wheat. Didn't you work for the Brandon Wheat Kings once? I may have worked for the Brandon Wheat Kings, but I'll tell you one thing. I've lived in both cities, and Regina's Victoria Avenue, way cooler than Brandon's. I'll say it right out. Okay. I'll just remind people from Brandon. You taking notes? All right, thanks, Cole. He's keeping receipts. Got to keep those receipts. Earlier this month, October was recognized as Disability Awareness Month in the province, and as Mick Fable tells us, Regina Company is going above and beyond, making sure those who desire to work have the opportunity to do so.
For 2 years, Mick has been working as a happiness maker at Sticks and Doodles, helping to create works of art for hundreds of customers. It's a position which makes the most of his strengths.
I like it. I get to work with my hands all the time. I pretty much grew up working with my hands. As a kid, I would always help my dad, build things.
Mick is a unique employee at Sticks and Doodles. He is part of a Regina-based initiative known as 4 to 40, a program which helps people experiencing disability find meaningful and fulfilling employment. 4 to 40 looks for the most appropriate and fitting positions for their clients to get the most out of the experience for all involved.
It's huge when we're able to make that perfect match between the person's, their skills, their abilities, their interests, and what the employer needs. So it really is trying to find meaningful work for the employee that is also meaningful work for the employer.
Since 2014, the program has helped over 80 individuals find employment, with 32 clients currently in the Saskatchewan workforce. Sticks and Doodles is one of the 50 employer partners taking part. Co-owner Kyle Moffat says Mick on board has created a better work environment for all employees.
The whole program has really taught me a lot about positive HR policies, not just with somebody that maybe has an intellectual disability, but with all people. And I think that's had a really big impact on all of us.
According to management, Mick is a valuable part of the team, a hard worker who was incredibly efficient at many tasks, who helps make the world of sticks and doodles go round. The satisfaction of buyers continues to drive his work ethic.
Someone comes in here and they buy something and they get like joy on their face, I would say, and I get to say I made that.
The true definition of a happiness maker, proving that inclusivity benefits us all. Mick Favel, CTV News, Regina.
Still ahead here from Regina's Maddox Schultz and BC's Liam Pugh, a pair of Pats wearing the maple leaf next month.
Wardrobe consideration in part by Colin O'Brien Men's Shop.
The Riders released their depth chart for tomorrow's game in Winnipeg, and there are plenty of starters not in the lineup. To no surprise, quarterback Jake Mayer will get a second start with Trevor Harris. He's going to dress, but he's listed as a third-string quarterback. Other offensive players not playing, receivers Dante Myers, Keyshawn Johnson, both dealing with injuries. Canadian receiver Samuel Emelis not going to play. Running back A.J. Ouellette giving Mario Anderson a start in the backfield. Offensive lineman Jamarcus Hardrick's going to sit, while Logan Furland will dress, but he's listed as a backup, so he might not see much playing time. Defensively, lineman Micah Johnson gets a break, while an injured secondary gets a much-needed rest. Guys like Marcus Sales, Roland Milligan, Nelson Lacombo, Jackson Ford all not playing. Devon Campbell will play after missing the last 4 games, though, with an injury.
I just want to see the effort. I just want to see them dialed in on their assignments. You know, no mental mistakes, no mental errors. You know, being fluent with the communication throughout the game.
Getting the monkey off your back a little bit early on felt good, but you know, we're going to show up on Friday night with a purpose, and then that purpose is to get better and compete as best we can.
We talked to the guys since training camp. At one point or another in the season, like, we're going to depend on you to help us try to win football games, and some of them have had to do it early, and some of them, you know, have to do it now. But just the way the season's gone, a lot of those guys, it's not like they're fresh faces.
Now, Winnipeg, who ended Saskatchewan's season last year in the West Final, need an Edmonton loss to clinch a playoff spot. A win doesn't even do it this week for them. Game time is 6 o'clock tomorrow on TSN. It'll be quite the hockey season for Maddox Schultz and Liam Pugh. Not only will the 15-year-olds play more than 30 games for the WHL's Regina Pats, they'll also suit up for the under-18 Pat Canadians who host regionals. But as Jacob Carr tells us, next month they are taking their game to the international level.
It's a good thing that both Maddox Schultz and Liam Pugh love the game of hockey. In early November, they will have to put their juggling act of under-18 Pat Canadians games and WHL Pats games on hold, as they will don their 3rd different uniform this season, representing Team Canada White at the Under-17 World Challenge.
Obviously, when you get the chance to represent your country, it obviously feels really good. I really look forward to going to Truro and hopefully get winning a gold medal.
You dream of playing and having the leaf on your crest, so it's pretty special to be able to be wearing the Canada jersey.
For the young duo, both the Pats and Pat Canadians seasons are now in full swing. While the Pats are off to a slow 1-5-1 start, the Pats C's have came out of the gate hot with a 5-1 record. Finding the right amount of games and rests between the two clubs for Pugh and Schultz is a balancing act.
So if we're tired, need days off after a 3-game weekend, 2-game weekend, whatever it is, then we got to take a day off. So we kind of just take it week by week, month by month, see how we're feeling.
2 former Pat Canadians in Boston Tate and Chase Serkan will also be donning the maple leaf, but for Team Canada Red. Schultz is looking forward to reuniting with his old teammates.
You know, we had a pretty good team last year. Obviously won a national championship, which is really nice. But I think our team last year was really bonded, so you know, I got really tight with those two, and it's going to be fun to play against them.
Schultz and Pugh's first action with Team Canada White will be November 2nd as they take on Team Sweden in Truro, Nova Scotia. Jacob Carr, CTV News, Regina.
WHL last night, it was a tale of 2 different games for the Moose Jaw Warriors. Halfway through, they are up 4-0 on the visiting Kamloops Blazers. And then the rest of the game happened.
Stopped by Hutchison. Warriors couldn't tip it out. Lafreniere, left circle drive, save made. They score, actually, as it trickles through Matthew Hutchison.
Kamloops scored 7 times. Tommy Lafreniere leading away with a pair of goals as the Blazers came back to beat the Warriors 7-5. Aiden Ziprick had 2 goals in a losing cause. Warriors are in Saskatoon to face the Blades Friday, while the Pats travel to PA. Coming up, how a reversal of a provincial policy is hurting some local distilleries.
Most of southern Saskatchewan looking at some cooler temperatures to settle in next week, but for now, staying in double-digit highs for tomorrow as we take a look at your rural forecast. In Melfort, Hudson Bay, Watrous, Meadow Lake, Lloydminster, and Kindersley, all looking at highs of 11 with a mix of sun and cloud. In Wynyard, a high of 11 tomorrow with a bit of fog, so keep that in mind if you have any driving in the Wynyard area tomorrow. Outlook looking at 13, so a bit warmer. Moving to the southern portion of the province, 11 in Leader, same for Rockglen and Pilot Butte. Lumsden, Broadview also expecting highs of 11 tomorrow, a bit warmer in Assiniboia and Rosetown at 12, and 13 in Coronach. East End Cypress a bit cooler with a high of 9 degrees. Mix of sun and cloud for the majority of the province, a bit more sunny in Lumsden and Pilot Butte. Carlisle, however, looking to see some of that rain showers that we saw peeking up into southeastern Saskatchewan. Same goes for Kenora, although Broadview should mostly miss the majority of that system according to what we have. Let's take a closer look now at Watson, where internet speeds of up to 1 gigabyte are available through SaskTel. Looking at a high of 10 for tomorrow in Watson. Winds out of the northwest between about 30 and 50 kilometers per hour, and it's not just Watson where the wind is going to be fairly strong tomorrow, so keep that in mind.
The dangers of radon has been talked about for a while in Saskatchewan. Regina known as a bit of a hot spot. New Brunswick has become Canada's first province to offer free radon testing kits so people can see if their home has high levels of the radioactive gas. But within 24 hours of that program's launch, many of the libraries that had the kits ran out. Sarah Plowman has more.
Radon wasn't on her radar until Heather Hogan was diagnosed with lung cancer 13 years ago.
We've been living in this house and we've had high levels of radon.
She was treated, but recently cancer came back.
So right now, I'm just waiting to find out my next steps.
The patient-turned-advocate wants people to know radon is the leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers. It forms naturally when radioactive metals break down in rocks, soil, and groundwater and seeps into homes undetected. Last year, a survey found 1 in 5 Canadian homes have levels at or above Health Canada's guidelines. In New Brunswick, it's 1 in 4.
It is a personal thing, but this affects a lot of people.
Her husband, Bill Hogan, is an MLA who proposed the province cover radon testing kits, a program that started this week at libraries. But within 24 hours, NB Lung heard many had run out.
We are looking for a rapid restock and maybe restocking at a higher level.
The concern is people could be living in homes with high levels of radon and have no idea.
It is so important to test your home for radon because every home that is in contact with the ground has some level of radon in it. The question is how much.
Once the Hogans learned they had high levels of radon, they installed this system to remove the gas. It costs more than $4,000, but they know not everyone can afford it.
The government cannot pay for every house to be mitigated. However, are there ways that that grants could be offered for part of that?
New Brunswick's Minister for Post-Secondary Training and Labor notes that 80% of those 2,000 testing kits are now gone, but more are being ordered, promising that anyone who wants one will get one. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
Well, keeping it Canadian has inspired the removal of American alcohol from store shelves across the country. In Saskatchewan, local distilleries rushed to fill that void, and then the province decided to put U.S. booze back on the shelves. CTV's Allison Bamford has more on the pain inflicted by that reversal in policy.
For some Saskatchewan distilleries like the one behind me, these last 7 months have been a roller coaster between retaliatory tariffs and inconsistent liquor bans. And with U.S. liquor sales plummeting across the country, this distillery had hoped for more success. This spring, Stumbletown Distilling rushed to fill the void of certain American liquor products banned from Canadian shelves. They spent 3 months developing new products set to launch in June. That same week, Saskatchewan reversed its ban on U.S. liquor to give consumers more options, leading to slower sales for products this small distillery thought would be hits.
We thought we would be taking over all of that market and there'd be a lot less competition. It would have went a long way to kind of keep that supply chain closed a little longer for small producers like us.
A report released this month shows American spirits exports to Canada plunged 85% in the second quarter of this year. While Canada recently removed retaliatory tariffs on American spirits, bans on U.S. liquor still exist in most provinces. The Buy Canadian movement has increased overall support for Canadian liquor products, but not enough to offset the loss in U.S. sales. One international business professor believes this drop in U.S. liquor consumption could continue for the next few years.
City of Saskatoon says its electric vehicle charging stations will no longer be free by the end of the month. The city had been running a pilot program that launched in May of 2023, offering free charging stations at Lakewood and Lawson Civic Centers. But at its meeting at the end of August, council voted to start charging users $5.35 an hour. That is expected to fully recover the cost of providing them. Stock markets for us. Markets both down. The TSX down 178 points, while the Dow Jones slipped by 301 points. Canadian dollar, how did that do? Well, went down again a little bit by 0.05 of a cent to 71.16 cents U.S. On the commodity front, gold up $119.10, a pretty little jump there. West Texas Intermediate crude down 78 cents, while Western Canadian Select crude went down 32 cents. And gas in Regina hasn't moved as commonly most places, if not all of them, for $1.30.9 per liter.
The Credit Counseling Society says those charges add up to about $600 million in revenue for banks. That's because banks often charge customers up to $50 when they don't have enough money to cover costs. But the rules change in March. Those fees will be capped at $10, and banks won't be allowed to charge you if the shortfall is under $10. Canadian Tire will soon start to sell the distinctive Hudson's Bay blanket. Proceeds from the sales will go to Indigenous-led initiatives. Canadian Tire promises to put at least $1 million into the fund, even if they don't sell $1 million worth of blankets. The retailer bought Hudson's Bay intellectual property when it declared bankruptcy. The Bank of Montreal is selling 138 of its branches in the U.S. to First Citizens Bank and Trust. The value of the deal has not been shared. The locations are scattered across 11 states from North Dakota to Missouri. BMO plans to open up 150 new branches, many in California. Those are your business headlines. I'm Morella Fernandez.
Coming up after the newscast, we've got Hell's Kitchen, followed by 911 Nashville. Not the one where they're in space. I think they're just in Nashville in this episode. Grey's Anatomy at 9, Big Bang Theory at 10, E-Talk, and then your national and local news. Hey, Canadian fans of The Lord of the Rings are in for a treat next year.
A special cast reunion tour will be making 2 stops in Canada next year. One at the Calgary Expo in April, the other at Toronto's Fan Expo in August. The event is being promoted as an evening with the Hobbits, and it'll feature a conversation with Sean Astin, Billy Boyd, Dominic Monaghan, and Elijah Wood live on stage. The tour marks 25 years of the release of the first film.
And of course, those videos from Edmonton, they were at Edmonton Expo as well. So
that's right, they were.
Not in Saskatchewan.
Well, not yet. Maybe someday. Well, finally for us tonight, a video from an animal removal company in southern Ontario is going a little bit viral.
All right, buddy, hang on.
Yeah, hang on. Raccoon stuck, needed some help getting out of a hole at a home in London. The owner called wildlife control, and a worker used a rope to gently pull the raccoon out. It quickly jumped down the ladder and ran away, to our knowledge, unharmed. The video of the encounter has been viewed more than 12 million times.
Oh, there he goes. All right, I was... He stuck that landing, or she.
Well, yeah.
We don't know for sure.
Belly flop seemed like probably hurt, especially if it was like in a pool, right?
Are raccoons like cats that just always land on their feet?
No.